Are Amazon and Disney going to be dominating cinema screens for the next 10 years? Because they don't really care if the movie bombs or not. Welcome to the Tachyon Pulse podcast.
Our Tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
Ever since COVID, cinema has been weird. It's been very, very difficult to judge what film will do really well and what film will bomb. And a lot of the time, in the last few years, big budget action movies that normally would make $1 billion have not made any money at all, or even lost money at cinemas. But even with that, Amazon are announcing that they're about to put at least 12 movies a year into the cinema, and Disney last year were the only company at the cinema that actually did quite well. They actually took earnings of $4 billion at the cinema, and they were quite happy. They were actually celebrating movies that we were looking at thinking, well, they didn't even make their money back at the cinema. And say a movie costs $100 million to make. You've then got probably about 50% again on top of that with advertising and PR, etc. for the movie. So a movie really costs about $150 million to make. So if it makes $150 million worldwide box office, which no movie is guaranteed to even do that anymore, then you'd think, well, the movie's at least broken even, right? Well, no, because the studio only gets about half of that money. The cinema actually gets the rest. Middlemen, etc. So, your $150 million box office, you're maybe getting 75 million-ish of that money. So, you've lost 75 million. Now, I look at films like Novocaine recently. It did badly at the cinema, but it shouldn't have done. It's got a young up-and-coming actor that's very popular in other things. It's his first big role as the star, maybe, so you could argue that, okay, maybe not everybody knows him, but he's been a big star in The Boys. He was very popular in Star Trek recently, and, you know, that film was advertised really well, looked really... I ran to the cinema to watch it. I thought it looked great, and actually, it's a good film. It's quite good. An unusual storyline, maybe, and a few bits made me cringe, but, you know, it's a good film, and it bombed. But then we get Minecraft, which looked stupid, and I'm thinking, who the hell is watching this? And, weirdly, the Minecraft thing is still very popular, you know, gaming, but when it was a phenomenon was probably about 10 years ago. So I'm like, this film's a decade late. And it's done really well at the box office. It's actually been a success. It does seem that movies that are really more aimed at kids, where, you know, parents are taking their kids to go and watch a movie, do seem to do better at the cinema now rather than films where it's just the parents going themselves. Why is cinema struggling? It's because of streaming services. And that's going to be important because I'm going to come into why Amazon and Disney will release movies at the cinema and don't care if they don't actually do that well. But it does seem to be streaming services that are really harming the cinema. And adults, a lot of the time, we will look at a movie coming out and we will know in the back of our heads, I pay for a streaming service that movie will definitely be on in like maybe 6 weeks. What's the point in going to the cinema and spending 20 quid a ticket and 50 quid on popcorn I don't even like? Yeah, I'm exaggerating obviously, but it feels like that when you're buying the bloody popcorn that's then stale. When I could just wait a few weeks and watch it in the comfort of my own home with a couple of beers. That, I think, is the nub of it, as well as the cost of living crisis, where people are watching the pennies a lot more than they used to. So they will go to the cinema with the kids because that's, you know, a bit of a day out. But date night, things like that, they're not going to the cinema. I think there was a delay, obviously, with COVID as well, and people were a bit uncomfortable being in, you know, basically what is a cough box. You know, one big room where one person's got COVID, you've all got COVID. I think that was an element of that, but we've moved well on from that. And I think we have done for a couple of years now. Anybody that's still panicking about that, you need to calm down. Recently, at CinemaCon, the big cinema conglomerates were trying to get studios to agree to go back to basically waiting 3 months from a cinema release to streaming, a minimum of that. And they agreed, I think they agreed like about half that. And that wasn't all the studios. All the studios haven't agreed. But the studios that I think are going to dominate, and actually a source that I spoke to who works in PR for one of the larger ad agencies over in the US, was telling me the reason why Amazon and Disney are basically going to dominate is because they have the strongest platform for movies on streaming. Now, Netflix is the biggest and the most profitable, and they do have intentions and to try to go into movies, but they are not throwing themselves in to cinema the way that Disney and Amazon are. Other studios are also obviously making movies like Paramount and put it on their streaming service, and when a film does well, it's good for their streaming service. But for the reason I'm about to talk about, they rely on movies to do well at the cinema, whereas Disney and Amazon don't. So what do I mean? Basically, what Amazon is doing is they are taking their budget for movies, which is significant. They're the second largest streaming service worldwide still. They've got a significant budget for movies each year. So when they're putting movies in the cinema, all they're actually spending is their movie budget for streaming. And instead of putting those movies directly to streaming, they're putting some of them out to the cinema. Now, they will still be putting some movies just straight to streaming. Some movies with a significantly lower budget, equivalent basically to the old thing straight to video shop, movies back in the day. So there's still going to be that. But the budget has been split in half basically, and a lot of those movies will get a bit more money and they will go to the cinema. But it's money they'd have spent anyway, is the point. And Disney are basically doing the same thing. Disney, big example of this, was the last Indiana Jones movie. That was actually a financial success in the end, but it did not do well at the cinema. Now people were going, it's a flop, and Disney they're going, just wait till it gets on Disney Plus. We're not fussed. They made pretty much their entire budget back when they initially put Indiana Jones behind a paywall, and people paid for it at home to watch it. And then when they get Disney Plus, basically they do a bit of maths. They look at how much money did they make from subscribers, and then they look at how many hours any TV show, movie, etc. gets. So how many times does it get watched? They do a bit of a calculation and they figure out a monetary value for the movie. So even though it hasn't made money from advertising or people buying it, they've made money from the subscribers. How much do the subscribers like, or how much do they watch what you've done? And that gives them a monetary value. Indiana Jones did really, really well on the watch at home. So, as far as Disney are concerned, it did very, very well for them. The most recent equivalent of that with Amazon is Red One. The big Santa Claus Dwayne Johnson movie did badly at the cinema, but they released it at the beginning of November. I think it was just after Halloween. It was just a week after Halloween, I think. And I remember at the time thinking, what are they doing? That no one's going to watch a Christmas movie 2 months before Christmas. Why haven't they released it at the start of December, like they normally do when people are starting to get into Christmas? If anything, they're releasing it at that period of the time of year where a lot of parents are like going, oh God, it's Christmas. How did this come along so quickly? They're not in the mood or getting ready, for Christmas. They released a Christmas movie then. It bombed. I was told when it was released, and I actually told you guys when it was released at the cinema, they hadn't announced it, but I found out through people I know over Amazon that they were going to be putting it on Amazon Prime before Christmas. Now, a lot of people jumped on that at the time and said, oh, look, because it's bombed so badly, they've just dumped it on Prime. What a failure. It didn't matter. It was always Amazon's plan to do it. What they'd basically done was put it in the cinema. They didn't care how it did. It was basically just one big advert for the straight-to-streaming release. And then they do that bit of math, they see how many people watch it, and it did very well, thank you very much. So, that's basically it. And that's why Amazon and Disney will dominate the cinema over the next few years, because they've got a platform to then put the movies on. Sony will do okay as well, to be fair, because they've got a deal with Netflix, and Netflix pay them a fee, and that fee covers the bulk of the actual production costs. So whatever it does at the cinema, in the same way for Disney and Amazon, is basically a bonus. It's a movie that you've budgeted within your streaming budget. It's basically like something virtually for nothing. So yeah, that is now the future of cinema, I'm afraid. We're going to see a lot less movies from independent creators and stuff, or smaller studios trying to get onto the cinema, because it is so volatile. They are so at risk of losing their shirts, unless that studio has a deal with a streaming provider where they know they can get the money in the back end. It used to be DVD sales. I remember Kevin Smith talking about this years ago, saying that his movies never did great at the cinema, but whatever they did at the cinema, they did on DVDs as well, and that was always made their money. So his films always made money. There is no video sales now. There are no DVD sales now, particularly. Well, there is a bit of sales through, digital downloads and things, but streaming is where the money comes from. And that's the future. And it's not even the future. It's the now. But guys, get into the comments on what you think. How much has streaming really harmed cinema? And with modern TVs big as your pig in house and stuff, do we need the cinema as much as we used to? We've got sound and quality, etc. at home. Would it be that big a shame if we just lost the cinema industry? Or at least a big chunk of it? We've already lost so much. For me, it would be a massive shame. But what do you think? Get into the comments. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. It really helps us out, and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can become a member of the channel, where you get to see videos like this up to 24 hours before everybody else. Go and check that out. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.